just want to speak in general against this budget, because I think if we vote in favour of this budget, what we're saying is that we accept what's been handed out by central government. We accept that it is okay to have a 9% cut to local government, and we are willing to hand on that to communities and to the people who can least afford it, to people who will have to take flat rate increases in things like the burial charges, the cut to the playgrounds, to libraries. A council that has recently made a big deal out of spending vast sums of money on a super library by claiming that it is committed to libraries, is going to cut €100,000 off a library fund. The cuts from central government are being doled out to the people who can least afford it, and we as a council have to say no. If you look at the figures, it's down since 2008, it's down by 15% the money that local government gives us. First the Fianna Fáil government, now Fine Gael Labour government, starve local authorities of the funding that they need. And we have to become a campaigning council. We have to become a council that says, no, we're not going to accept this. We have to have the money to give decent services locally. And there is somewhere to get this, because the myth at the moment in Ireland is, well, there's no money, sorry. There's enough money to pay $1 billion into the banks next month, and that is the choice of the Labour Fine Gael government. It was the choice of the Fianna Fáil government beforehand. Now it's Labour Fine Gael who are choosing to pour money into banks, to not put any, look at the budget they just pushed through. They're not putting any wealth taxes,
just on a point of order, you have to stick to this budget. We're not debating the government budget. We're debating the budget in the council chamber. I'm trying to be reasonable. I don't want to be unreasonable. We must stick to this budget. Yeah. What happens outside here is not relevant to us.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, actually, what happens outside here is very relevant. The government just cut 9%, and if you don't see that as relevant, I'm not entirely sure why we have a budget here at all. That is the main relevance of this. The government is deciding to starve local governments, and I think we have to, as a council, say no, and the first position to do that is by voting against this budget and say we need more funds locally, and those funds cannot be gotten by a €100 household charge, by flat rate charges for burials, by charges for call-out services for fire services. It is all about getting the individual to pay on a flat rate, which means that the millionaire pays exactly the same as the pensioner on €219 a week. And I think we have to say no to this budget as well.
Councillors, please stick to this budget. I don't want to be unreasonable. Please stick to this budget. We're sticking to the budget. If you go outside the boundary, I'll have to rule you out of order.
Okay, Carla, perhaps I could clarify why I made the comment unbelievable just a couple of moments ago. Carla, I was elected 2 years ago, as everyone else in this chamber, on the basis that we were going to make a change in local government, that we were going to have our input, and the most important meeting, the most important discussions are around the budget. But Labour, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have carved up this budget, particularly Labour and Fine Gael, on the corporate policy group. P4Profit, the independent councillors, have had no input into this whatsoever. And democratically, it's an absolute disgrace. Whether you follow our economic policies or not, it's a democratic mandate that we each should have some input into this budget. Cahill, I explained to you before the start of this meeting that we would have a motion. I handed it up as soon as the meeting starts, and I do not believe for 1 second that our motion went in second. I think I've been incredibly disingenuous tonight, and this is typical really of this council, to push this through this budget with no real discussion, and we're incredibly quiet. Fine Gael and Labour sitting over there. This time last year they were hacking Fianna Fáil for these cuts. Now these are doing exactly the same thing, and in 2.5 years' time you're going to pay the price, believe me.
First of all, just on a correction. I run the meeting fairly, openly and honestly, and I administer a fairness to every councillor the same. And I totally reject it and ask you to draw that comment. I received your motion at 17:02, signed and witnessed by the Manager of Corporate Services. I ask you to draw that comment. I administer here fairly and objectively.
Manager, or Cathaoirleach, I explained to you before the meeting started that we had a motion, so I ain't
You didn't. I didn't receive your motion. I received your motion through the manager of corporate services. I was timed by him.
I explained to you we had a motion. This happened before 2 years ago over Saturday night.
Well, I don't know what happened 2 years ago.
Well, I can
I'm
recall a
now,
very important meeting 2 years ago. You should be able to remember.
Councillor Fox.